Nick, we watched a lot of Mel Brooks in our lives. We've watched quite a bit this month already, and I think it's interesting that I think the only Mel Brooks movie we probably both haven't seen at this point is Life Stinks, the one we're talking about today. Which is funny because that's why I pushed it on us. Is I was like, I know it's not considered his greatest movie, but it's the only one I haven't seen yet.
Right, it's like it's like well, let's do this because I've never seen this as well because when I was a kid, it got really bad. It was really criticized harshly.
Yeah, the film holds currently an 18% on Rotten Tomatoes from all the aggregated reviews that were found.
It was a lot of people's worst. It was made a lot of people's worst list from 1991.
Yeah, and I think there was a level of anticipation with the new Mel Brooks movie that this is kind of will break down how different this movie is today, and kind of discuss how the differences of the film more than anything else I feel were to its detriment because people expected one thing and got a very different thing.
All right, it's Life Stinks. We'll see if this movie actually does stink. I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast.
I'm Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
And before we begin, I would like to appreciate the new subscribers. If you're new to the show, we would like to appreciate and thank you and hope you enjoy it. And also the new people that come and listen, and also the loyal listeners and the fans. So we greatly appreciate it. Hope you enjoy this episode.
Yep. Thank you for liking. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for checking out the Patreon.
All right. What's the story about?
Our film is Life Stinks from 1991. And in Life Stinks, Mel Brooks plays Goddard Bolt.
Yeah, I love that name, though.
Yeah, a rich and conniving businessman who plans to buy up a large section of LA's Skid Row in order to turn it into his dream project, Bolt Center. There's just one problem. Half the land is owned by rival businessman Vance Craswell, who has similar plans. The two strike up a bet. If Goddard, who has always been wealthy, can last 30 days homeless and penniless on the streets of Skid Row, he can have the whole thing. If he can't, the land goes to Craswell. Goddard quickly learns that life on the street comes with a whole slew of unexpected problems as he takes up with a cluster of homeless friends, while Craswell has plans to stack the deck against him.
Okay, so there's an old movie from 1941 called Sulliver's Travels. It's based on a famous film director who wanted to make another movie about being homeless or being a vagrant, and actually did become a vagrant himself just to get the experience being homeless and all this stuff, and then it wakes his eyes up to the world and everything. Mm-hmm. So this is actually a little bit based on that. Life Stinks is actually a little bit based on the movie Sulliver's Travels, which is a spin on Gulliver's Travels. So if you check it out as well, that's a black and white comedy.
Well, we talking about this film is we both went into it. Kind of knew the plot as I went into it as well, but it's an unusual title, and it's kind of considered the redheaded stepchild of Mel Brooks' career. And I will say this: going into this movie, I was really hoping to be swung by its magic because I've loved every single Mel Brooks movie from a varying degree. I think his movies are placed on a good to amazing list. There are no bad Mel Brooks movies in my mind, and this is kind of on that level of I don't think it's a bad movie. I just think it's it's okay. Kind of
so yeah, right. I agree. It's not the greatest of Mel Brooks's. It's not going to be in the catalyst. It's not even part of the discussion. But I think what does work against it, it's not a parody. It's an original content, so even though it's based on Sulliver's Travels, it's its own material. As well as there's really no fourth breaking wall, right? He's not really talking to the camera and winking, which we kind of like, what are you doing, Mel? Almost like you're taking this role a little too serious, right?
Yeah, Mel Brooks considers it the greatest acting performance of his career, and I wouldn't fight that. I do think it's actually, he's got some moments of subtlety, he's got some moments of dramatic range that are in this film where he doesn't get to show that in a lot of other things. But like you said, it's not a parody. It's really, I think, one of only 3 movies that he directed that are not parodies. The Producers,
History?
The 12 Chairs,
12
and this one as well are just like, they're never full-on send-ups of any one genre. They're kind of just comedies in the general sense. And this one is kind of a level of, it plays itself to a comedy, but then there's also moments of parody that pepper in, and those are the moments for me that kind of took me out of the movie. There's a scene where they're both in the construction equipment, and they're having the things are making King Kong sounds, and they're hitting.
Oh, like they're dinosaurs. Yeah.
And that kind of took me out of the movie because I thought we were kind of in a straight-laced comedy, and that part was like, oh, it doesn't really fit. It doesn't belong in this movie.
Yeah.
There's just the heart's in the right place, which is what a lot of people said. They do believe that he was intending to make a really thoughtful social commentary film. It's just the path he took to get there. I think he could have used some of his more Mel Brooksisms and made a parody that also reminded you of the social commentary.
Yeah, now as I watched it, I was like, maybe somebody not Mel Brooks could have done this, and I took a little more different avenue, and then that's when and that's not good. When you sit and watch a movie and like, what if they did this, or maybe they did that, then you're like, oh, I'm getting to that point where it's not really going very well. I do like the intro, and it actually plays into the whole ensemble, the cool walking in, and they're always fancy, but then it gets played out again of him being homeless, and then they walk and they do the same kind of walk and follow the feet and everything.
Well, and like you pointed out, we're supposed to spend 30 days with Goddard Bolt as a homeless person. That really only takes up about 35 to 40 minutes of the runtime of the movie.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like the producers to me in that way, where the actual producing part of the producers, them setting up the play, them getting it ready to go, is really only like a third of the movie, and you feel like it's unfinished in that way, because we don't spend that much time with him homeless, and it's not as difficult as he might think. Like after he starts, has his first day or two there, we spend a lot of time skipping forward in time, and it's like, I just feel like I didn't feel his difficulty in being homeless for
I don't
30
either.
days.
I agree.
So I think it's just less successful in that way, because it focuses on a more bombastic finale, which I actually think the finale works pretty well on the whole, but I feel like this movie, it's weird to say that, because I wasn't bored watching it. It could have been a little bit longer and focused a little bit more on his struggles being homeless.
I agree. I don't really sense that he's struggling. It's almost finding new things. He's almost coming into this world and being aware, like, oh my God, they're treating you, this is your guys' world. This is what you're getting used to. This is definitely a different end of the spectrum for Leslie Ann Warren here. She was a rich person in Miss Scarlet and Clue, and now she's doing all the ragtag here in Life Stinks. It took me a while to accept that she's going to play this homeless person.
Yeah, I read the quick one-line synopsis on IMDb before watching the movie, and it says meets up with a beautiful homeless woman played by Leslie Ann Warren. I was like, excuse me? And I think that's kind of part of it too, is that he does kind of, because there's only 30 minutes spent on that, it runs through those 30 days.
Yeah.
In that he kind of falls ass backwards into Leslie Ann Warren's care, and them kind of having this will they won't they kind of thing going on there. And it's kind of again he gets lucky that he's faking homelessness and then finds a beautiful homeless woman,
right? Leslie Ann Warren, right.
And part of it was just too it's also, when you see these movies, I know that we're making a movie, so there's only so much you can do, but every time she talked, I was like, she's perfect teeth. And I just thought to myself, if she's been homeless for as many years as she has, I don't know if she'd be brushing as often. It was just moments like that where I wasn't convinced by her homelessness. And I'm not saying that you need to knock out Leslie Ann Warren's teeth to make her.
No, or you do the method, or you do the method act of the cycling. Though you're going to play homeless to be homeless in a movie talking about being homeless.
Yeah.
But that's where I talked about the problem with the film is everything seems forced. Even Leslie Ann has her comic bit, her speech, and the camera just, all right, here we go, and the camera moves and go into the space and do it. It just doesn't seem authentic. We get the introduction of Jeffrey Tambor. I don't know if it was retake 20, but it's a close up of how we are.
Yeah.
And he opens the door and I was like, where are we? The office or what? So there's a lot of, doesn't really flow very well.
Yeah.
And when you don't have a good flowing, it doesn't seem very funny.
Yeah.
Where it's supposed to. Jeffrey Tambor is supposed to have this awkward entrance, but we don't know if it's if it's at his house or in the bathroom, but we realize it's actually, Goddard Bolt's office, and he does that bit again, but then it doesn't really translate very well.
Yeah, I think I had to catch on pretty early on that it wasn't parody, and even reading the synopsis, you get that it's not parody, but you have to tell yourself that pretty early on to understand where it's coming from. But I will say this: I didn't laugh at a whole lot in the movie. But I also wouldn't say that I found it unfunny when it was trying to make jokes. It was merely that it wasn't like guffaw kind of laughter. It was more that's pretty good.
No, when he tries to do the dance to make money.
Yeah, and I liked it. I would call the comedy charming more than anything. Is that I found again, Mel Brooks is a very charming performer, so spending time with him is funny. There was one thing that I always think about, now when I'm when did I laugh in the movie? And that's the J. Paul Getty scene where he comes across the homeless man who thinks he's J. Paul Getty, and it kind of reminded me of the fight in They Live, where it's like it should have ended 5 minutes earlier, but they just kept pushing it
Like the
over
fight?
and over. Yeah,
Like
like
the
the
fight
fight,
movie?
and then he's walking away. He's like, "I'm Richard, though," and then it starts all over again. Like I thought that was like agonizingly funny, where you're like, just end the scene. Like it worked. That worked pretty well for me. Again, there's moments in this movie that made me laugh, similar to like Silent Movie, where I don't think Silent Movie is an altogether great Mel Brooks movie, but there are great moments.
There's vignettes that work.
Yeah,
in Silent
and that's
Movie.
kind of how
Right.
this was for me. Was like the series of moments didn't work as well on the whole, but there was moments in there that I thought were very, very funny. And I think about the dance scene where he not where he's dancing looking for money, but where he's finally like realized his 30 days are up and he's
Right,
dancing
yeah.
with Leslie Ann Warren, and it's a very well choreographed dance scene around garbage.
Where it's supposed to be, different from you being at your home with chandeliers and this, everything.
Yeah.
yeah.
I really like that scene because again, like it's a beautifully done scene, and it's also just kind of like the irony of it that they're having this lovely moment together surrounded by garbage.
it's right. And as I watched it the first time, I almost put in my notes, oh my God, this is almost like They Live.
Mm.
Right. There's a lot of, I'm sure they even share the same locations, for God's sakes.
Yeah, that I did actually continually think about, like, did they shoot this in the same back alley? You know, it kind of catches you off guard because I mean those movies were somewhat filmed in the same area, but yeah, those that kind of, it feels pretty lived in, and it feels like it has a reason and a purpose to be there. But it's tough because you put Mel Brooks' name on it and people expect something they didn't get. It's like the Halloween 3 of Mel Brooks' career. What? No Michael Myers? We hate this movie. You know, it's kind of just in,
Right,
in that world.
Stuart Penkin is in this movie. Now, Stuart Penkin did a lot of where he was a snotty ass character. But he got famous in the late 80s being an HBO TV show called Not Necessarily the News, which is satirical broadcast news, almost like Network meets Weekend Update.
Yeah.
It's almost like Network meets Weekend SNL Weekend Update, where he pitched the news, but it was all making everybody look bad. So they have like, we're making fun of Ronald Reagan, or snippets or vignettes or fake commercials and everything. And that's how Stuart Penkin, he was like the lead broadcaster on that show, and that's where I know from him.
I remember that show very lightly in passing. I may have to go check it out and see if it's on
I don't know if you
HBO
can find
Max.
it right. I can think maybe
You know?
on HBO Max, but I think it's one of those that just fit for the time. I don't think a lot of it works very much anymore.
Yeah, it's probably true as well. But it's nice to have a living onion, if you will.
Theodore Wilson is in this movie. He's the black gentleman.
Okay.
Who actually died before the movie was released. He died of AIDS. But it's kind of sad because they have a character that does die in the movie, and he talks about this whole speech of death and everything, and it kind of hits a little bit more than it should have because he wasn't get to see the final product.
Yeah, but I think if I'm correct, he has, I think, my favorite line in the movie. And it's something I didn't think about. I laughed at when I first saw it, and I didn't think about it much afterwards. But then I was watching an old episode of Siskel and Ebert because I wanted to see their take on the movie. Ebert loved it, Siskel did not.
Yeah.
But Siskel said the best line in the movie was they took all our crap away from us, or they took it away and made us live crap, and then they took the crap away. And I think, like, I didn't think about how genius that line was and how good of a line it was that really made you think about it.
They made us live in crap, and then they took the crap away.
Yeah, and when I heard Siskel mention it, I was like, wow, that was a really good line. And I just, it stuck with me ever since I heard him kind of talk about how great of a line it is. The social commentary, I do think, works. And I think it reminds you, like, you know, these people that are homeless are not inherently bad. But like when you hit a point where you've run out of everything, how do you get started getting
or
it
how
back?
do you get back up, right?
Yeah, like how do you get that first dollar to invest in the second dollar? You know?
Yes. So we also have another one of Mel Brooks is he likes to use the same amount of core people, a lot of comedic people, and one of them is Rudy DeLuca, who actually I think had his own comedy store in LA, if I remember right. But he would eventually pop up in this film. He's got the wild hair, and he does.
He's the J. Paul Getty guy.
Right, J. Paul Getty, and he's this wild, and then he does the juvenile thing of copy everything you say, copy everything you say.
Oh yeah. And well, again, it's such a simple, and as we mentioned with Frankenstein, groan-worthy joke. But it's not unfunny. It's pretty good still. You know, it's just kind of like, and because we don't like Jeffrey Tambor, because he is a great villain in this movie. He's absolutely reprehensible in that he makes this bet and then he chooses to.
He almost seems like it's almost because he's using the same kind of character from Mr. Mom. It's almost like
Yes.
the character from Mr. Mom, all of a sudden inherited a bunch of money.
Yeah, it's almost like he plays corrupt businessman in his entire career, including Arrested Development. Like he just like translated his whole career through like jerky businessman, and he's
Well,
successful at it.
it makes Death of Stalin even more funny because
Yes.
they really just take on Jeffrey Tambor.
Yep. Yep. Well, and Howard Morris, if I'm correct, played Sailor
Yes.
in the film.
Yeah.
Sailor's probably my favorite character, and Howard Morris, I remember working on History of the World Part 1 with Mel Brooks. He was in Caesar's Palace in that film. And I think, like, he again, it translates to Sailor pretty well. Sailor's a very likable character in that, you know, he doesn't do anything wrong in the movie. He's
almost like the
you know,
consciousness of it.
Yeah.
Like, he's aware that he's homeless, but he's aware that, yeah.
And it's his character kind of reminded me of the homeless man from Groundhog Day, where it was just like you know, he was kind of just part of like a small part of that Groundhog Day, but like he spent so many days just trying to save that man's life because like the man was not bad, he just couldn't get on his feet, and it kind of stayed with him as like he was a jovial part of the movie. That really does serve as the heart and soul and the reminder that they're all people. And again, like that's maybe again a problem of the film is that he has a scene with Mel Brooks that pushes Brooks to his dramatic reaches, and it does kind of make you wonder, like, is this a comedy? Like it's kind of
that's the problem.
level,
Right. I think that's the problem with it is it's supposed to be a comedy, but here we have a lot of social commentary that takes you back and like, okay, these people really do live like this.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's supposed to be a film, there's genuine people that do live like this, right?
Yeah. And I would say that if it's one thing that it gave to me was we should have with these movies a social commentary, a level of taken away, where you get done with the film and it does make you think for a little while. And in that way, Life Stinks was a successful movie because we kind of connect with Goddard Bolt in that many of us have never gone without meals before, have never gone hungry. Goddard Bolt, he started with the slums of only $3 million from his father.
That is under Donald Trump.
Yeah, I know. My God, like this is and that's what it kind of works with. Yeah. But many of us have not gone to a level of missing meals because we can't afford it. But it puts you in the shoes of like, just think for a second that yes, some people do, and some people scrounge and save and have to give cans up. They have to collect cans to maybe afford $1 cheeseburger from McDonald's because it's the only thing they can afford. It's like it does take away with me.
Yeah. So, and I do like the ending. I think it's one of those that who are you without the money, or can you be even better with money? So it's almost like can he navigate? And he becomes almost a better person without the money, and I think that's the goal of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me. The whole film reminds me of It's a Wonderful Life, of Click. These movies that kind of showcase for you who are you when you're not you. A Christmas Carol, even too, just like a reminder that you may have everything you ever wanted, but it doesn't make you a better person because you've gotten everything you want, because there are so many people out there that can't even get what they need.
Yes.
And the movie really, the staying power is strong, and the ending is pretty strong too, without some of those like parodic kind of things, like the two like fighting, like those moments, it just didn't fit in the comedy elements. It was a different kind of comedy.
So I like to say it was badly reviewed. It was harshly reviewed. It was considered one of the worst movies of the year. I think that's a little bit more that is not a typical Mel Brooks film. He's not breaking the fourth wall. It's not a parody. So people are kind of, the expectation wasn't really met overall, but I still think the movie has a little bit of flaws that takes away. So I think the rating that it gets now is a little bit deceiving. Yeah. I think it's a worthwhile film to enjoy, but it's not as bad as people perceive. I think it's a lot of just expectation of Mel Brooks.
Yeah, I think it's a movie that almost deserves to have an asterisk on its title saying this is not a not parody from Mel Brooks.
This is there, yeah.
I will agree with you. I recommend the movie. I think in the overall oeuvre of Mel Brooks films, I would place it maybe like second to the bottom. I personally am just not that big of a fan of the 12 Chairs. I've watched it a few times and like it just doesn't really
it has like
work
one or
for
two
me.
jokes that can make you laugh out loud, and then
I get the point of the movie, but it just doesn't grasp me. So I would put Life Stinks above that one, and then I'd probably watch Life Stinks again first. But I also think just like Silent Movie, I like the gimmick of Silent Movie a little bit more, where like I find the grandioseness of like Paul Newman and Burt Reynolds and James Caan appearing in a silent film.
And I like the cover of it.
It's kind of a goofy, silly movie, and Marty Feldman in that film steals the show. More so with like Life Stinks, probably near the bottom portion, but I think if you're a Mel Brooks fan, don't ignore the movie.
Right. That's what we're trying to emphasize. I think this is not. He's done so many good, marvelous, fantastic movies that all of a sudden you take this, it's gonna subtract.
Yeah, Life Stinks is really, it's only bad comparatively speaking. When you compare it to things like the absolute near perfection of Young Frankenstein, or the great social commentary through comedy of Blazing Saddles. You know, it's just bad in that sense that you're comparing the two, when really you should just look at it on its own. I think you'd enjoy it.
Because Mel does what I always tell people: don't come into the world quietly in a whisper. Come out loud and fireworks and use explosions and make everybody upset, or do a parody. Do it loud.
Yep, and that's what he does. And even in this film, he gets some loud moments. So. So we both recommend the movie. It definitely, above that level, I think.
I think the ensemble cast works.
I do like a lot of the smaller characters in it that we don't get a lot of, including those three lawyers. Like all three of the lawyers together, just kind of this great shuffling.
Oh, you're right. Yes.
But let us know your thoughts on it as well. The film is actually available on HBO Max, so if you have that, take an hour and a half out and check out the movie, and then come back and let us know your thoughts on Life Stinks down below. And again, thank you guys for liking, thank you for commenting, thank you for subscribing and joining the Patreon as well, which that link is down there. Everything that you do to help support the channel, we feel it, we see it, and we do appreciate it so much. It's one of our favorite things to be a part of with this channel.
Join the Patreon so we can give you a shout out.
Yeah, we want to give out some shout outs.
Or you can tell us what to do.
People can tell us what to do. We're pretty much robots. But thank you guys so much for joining us.
We're like the lawyers from Life Stinks. Yes, we'll do that. Yes, sir.
Until you're gone, and then we just... I'm just kidding with you. Thank you guys for joining us so much. You can find all my film reviews on goatfilmreviews.com.
You can find the St. Paul Filmcast anywhere you find podcasts, on Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon Radio.
Yep, and just remember, life's not that bad.